Guys, it's me. I'm back.
What's up, party people?
We're like, Max, come on.
All right, this show is taking a turn for the. How's everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of Monster Bass Live. We got another banger for you. Today we're going to talk about fall transition baits. You know, I was on an interview yesterday, and there was another phrase that I couldn't say. I tried it 3 times, and then finally I convinced myself to just use totally different words because every time my mouth opened, I couldn't get the word out properly. We're talking about fall transition baits today. We've got a new segment that we're going to share with you guys. It's the clip of the week. We are going to, don't forget, we got golden tickets are back. We got the trophy room and so much more. But first, if you weren't with us last week, I encourage you to go watch it. We acquired a company and immediately sold it. Now, we maintain a little piece of it, but we sold it to make it a veteran-owned company. It's First Contact Tungsten. You can find out about them at leadsucks.com. They sell their products at Tackle Warehouse and a bunch of fine retailers around the country. And the great thing that they're doing is they're helping, save our waterways and reduce the amount of lead that's in there. And they are, as a veteran-owned company, donating 5% of their profits to veteran initiatives. So if you've got a choice in who you buy your tungsten from, check out First Contact Tungsten. Thank you very much. It's been a really busy week. Last weekend I left on Thursday. I landed in Baltimore. I was going to go see Bruce Springsteen in concert. And lo and behold, I get there, and the day that I get there, Pearl Jam's in concert. So they both rescheduled concerts from a couple years ago. And so, rolled over to the show, scalped the ticket, and got to see 2 amazing shows, and then flew back. Literally, I was there for 48 hours. But it was great to catch up with some high school friends and see some great music. I feel like I might have seen Bruce for the last time. The man's amazing. 76 years old. The guy plays for 3 straight hours. I don't know how he doesn't. He doesn't even look like he's breaking a sweat. Every time I think I might be cool, I look at that guy. I'm like, damn, that guy's really cool. He's really good. I got back, had a great weekend. And then Taylor Swift ruined it. She ruined my weekend. I had my fantasy draft. I'm projected to win the league. I roll through week 1, week 2. All I need is an average week from Travis Kelce. I don't get it. All I got was flashes to Taylor Swift on the screen. I saw more of Taylor Swift during the game than I saw Travis Kelce. Now, Travis, if you're watching, I love you, bro. But I need you to start stepping up because I lost the week and I should have smoked them. I just need you to have like an average week. An average week. This weekend we got the boys from Troy, USC Trojans, rolling into Ann Arbor. I don't know if we got any Michigan Wolverine fans out there. If we do, I'm sorry because you're going to get smoked this weekend. We are going to roll into the big house and smoke you guys. All right, couple things. I got this letter here. You don't need to see it. It's handwritten. It's really nice. I love it when people take the time to write me letters. My name is Cody Roberts. I'm 12 years old. I just started fishing in my Arkansas fishing team, and I joined with my best friend, Cam. I love fishing. My grandpa's letting me borrow his boat so we can compete, but I don't have any gear. Would you help me get started? I know that if you send me some product, I got a good chance to win. Thank you for reading my letter. Cody Roberts. Cody, I wish you the best of luck this year. But if you want me to send you gear, I need a phone number or an address. Now, I know that you're 12, and so that's just whether it helps you this time or the next time you write a letter. If you're asking for something, make sure you tell me where to send it. And then this came in the mail. No, this isn't viewer mail. This is something I ordered. One of those nights where you're scrolling through Instagram, you're like, what in God's name is this? a wireless visual ear pick so that I can stick this thing in my ear, clean out all the stuff, and it'll show on my phone. We're going to try it out next week. I can't wait to see what's in my ear. It's probably why I can't hear anything, but it was one of those, flash in the pan ideas. All right, and then last but not least, Brian Rand. Brian. So I ordered, I don't know if you guys have been on the site. We got a lot of new apparel on the website. In fact, we've got some Adidas slides that Rafi has. Rafi, can I see one of your slides? Rafi's going to bring one over to me right now. Okay, so here it is. We got a pair of Monster Bass slides, because I live in my Adidas, blue and white 3-stripe slides. And so we made them. And when they came, I opened the box, I got all excited, and then I opened the box, and this is what I got. And I thought to myself, this is the dumbest thing. What kind of company would just decorate, put the logo on one? This is so stupid. I'm so mad. And then Rafi logged in and looked and saw that I only put the design on one slide. So then I looked because it's a brand new item, and I noticed who purchased these besides me, and it was Brian Rand. So Brian, if you're watching, don't worry about it. I'm going to get you a new pair as soon as they become available. I'm sorry about this. I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot. Such an idiot. But listen, I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. As a reminder, you can always watch us, catch us, listen to us, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you like to consume your content. We're available in all those places. And if you like what you see, please make sure you give us a thumbs up and let us know we're doing a halfway decent job. I mean, we think we're doing a halfway decent job, but who knows? Who knows? All right, we're going to open up with a new segment that, for lack of a better term, we don't have a better name yet, but it's our clip of the week, and we're going to bring Rafi on. We're going to let him set this up for a little bit. How's it going, Rafi?
What's up, Rick? Great.
Oh, wait, I can't hear him.
1 second. Okay. Now you're good.
Oh,
All right.
Testing.
What's up, Rick? It's
you
going
doing?
great.
Yeah.
It's great to be heard
Yeah.
and seen.
Yeah.
What was the word in your interview the other day that you couldn't say?
The unevium, like when you don't have to follow somebody, and it was the uneven, he had the
What does it mean?
It wasn't something that you'd ever want to have to do. And if Bella had to follow the guy,
Unenviable.
unenviable.
Got it. Okay.
And my brain can't, and for whatever reason, and I was introducing this girl for her Eagle Scout board of review, and I couldn't get the word out, and I stumbled, and I was like, and I had to use a different word, and then you threw me off by asking for it.
Well,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, turns out you were telling the truth.
So anyway.
So yes, the clip of the week. We're trying something new. I think he just got tired of me saying, "Hey, look at this," and asked me, "Just why don't you show it to everyone?" So, Fix. In a minute, when I give you the cue, will you roll the clip of the week? This one is an old one, and I have to assume that most, if not all, of you have seen it. But it was really, really surprising to me when I saw it. It was entertaining, but also a little bit horrifying. All right, hit it, Fix.
Caught fish.
We're just fishing. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just fishing. We haven't hit anything. And if we do, stuff happens. Okay.
No more fish.
Yep, no more fish.
Yeah. Someone scared him away.
Something.
Are you kidding me?
No more fish.
What kind of, what a Karen.
Yeah. So, I was really surprised to see this video because my experience with fishing is that it's, it's probably one of the more wholesome hobbies in sports in existence, where it's just people that are out there kind of like enjoying nature, enjoying public space. It would be crazy to me if somebody was hiking in a national park somewhere or a state park or walking around an actual park and somebody was screaming that you can't walk there and then like, I don't know, kicked rocks or something and said no more trail. And my question is, does this happen often? And if and why? Like, why are people like this? Is it a thing that people have to encounter when fishing?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it hasn't personally happened to me, but I've watched enough videos, right? There was the Travis Manson video. I've seen enough. I saw a video last week where some guy came over and snapped grabbed the kid's rod and snapped it in half so he couldn't go fishing. Like,
oh, thank goodness you said rod when you were like, and he snapped his. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. So I think it happens pretty regularly. I'd love to know in the chat if this happens to some of you guys when you're out. I mean,
yeah. But also with that said, I was like super impressed with that woman's commitment to the bit. Like she was in her house muumuu.
Yeah.
Jumped into the water.
Totally.
You could tell she's not comfortable with the water. Fix, could you roll the end of it? You could tell she's not comfortable in the water. She holds her nose before jumping.
Caught fish.
We're just fishing. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just fishing. We haven't hit anything. And if we do, stuff happens. Okay.
No more fish.
Yep, no more fish.
Yeah. Someone scared him away.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is that's my clip of the week.
Let's bring in Chris and see if he's ever encountered this stuff.
Let's bring in our Chris of the week.
I think I know that lady, actually. That's fantastic. That happens all the time. And I'll give some, I guess, a head nod to the homeowner, the boat owner. Allegedly, I maybe have skipped a lure or two underneath a boat. I actually have had my own boat have hooks and baits hooked into the boat. So if you got a boat on the water, and that's one thing to be really cognizant of, if you're fishing around docks and marinas, most marinas are shut down for that reason, is if you throw a bait, especially like a big, anything with treble hooks up onto the deck of a boat, don't just rip it back. And you just imagine what can happen if you do hook into the seats, the vinyl seats, the covers, whatever. That's kind of what happens. And so that lady does have a pontoon boat there. Pontoon boats are perfect for fish cover. And if they did the nice thing and they put that boat and they back it in so you can skip your bait down beneath the pontoons, it's awesome. And we tease when we're fishing, and I'll just say, allegedly, if you happen to hit the pontoon with a bait, makes a nice little ring. We call that a dinner bell. And as the bait drops down, the fish get it. And so it's kind of a laughing, fun thing, but that's kind of the thing, is like, I understand the homeowner's side. I understand if you hook a big hook or a bait and you break off. Now, if they go swimming, they're climbing up their dock, they're getting a hook in their leg or their hand. So we all got to play nice. I mean, that's just the reality. Most places, they don't own the water. Right. But the fact that she jumped in, I mean, I'd become best friends with that lady. It's like,
yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing.
No, it's good. Good on her. I mean, she's protecting her area. Those are her fish sticking. I actually, in the last tournament on our local lake, a lady asked if I was putting my fish back. So we catch fish and we have this weighing group that come over. So it's all about catching them, weighing them, and releasing them. I say, hey, just be a couple minutes. I'll make sure I bring your fish back. So purposely, I drove back to her dock and gave her back her fish because she thought they were hers. So, homeowners, they have their own idea what's going on in the water, but
wrap it in newspaper and leave it on her back doorstep.
I should have actually just decided to serve it up. I'll bring her some fish tacos later. But that's
someone in the chat said the real comedy would be filming her trying to get out of the water.
Yeah. That video ended way too soon.
the camera rolling. So I would have kept fishing around her, because if that lady was floating around, she'd provide some great cover, and I think you could probably catch a fish or two underneath her. So I think it's fine. Just skip a little Cinco over there. So no, all good.
That was funny. Rafi, what was that, on TikTok or Instagram?
No, I found it on YouTube, because Fix gave me parameters that I have to search YouTube for these videos.
So Milo, your son, isn't going to be much help, right? Because he's all on TikTok.
He's on Instagram and Instagram Reels. I would say that 99% of the things that he sends me aren't even appropriate for me to watch, so I don't know that I could share them.
Yeah.
But if he gets a good one that's clean, I'm gonna see if I can find it on. Well, we can't do it on Shorts either, right, Fixie? Nope, can't do it on Shorts. So I'll see what I can do.
Limiting beliefs, I think.
Yeah,
this might be Fixie.
I'm stuck with long form.
All right.
That was a good. Hey, that was a good start. I like it. I like the new segment, clip of the week. That's good. This is
I
it's
like
fun.
that. And now that we've had enough of our fill of Rafi for the moment, I think we can pass him off since we're going to talk about fall transition. Unless you've got a PhD now in fall transition, Rafi.
I don't.
Okay. Bye, Rafi.
Bye.
See you,
All
Robbie.
right.
Thanks
Yeah.
for joining.
I like that clip of the week. I could talk about
was
clips.
good.
I could do a whole 30-minute show on that. But
Yeah,
you know,
like
but
Rob
we're here to
Deerdick.
talk
Rob Deerdick.
Yeah.
Ridiculousness. I think we could do a bass fishing ridiculousness. I mean, we need to do that at some point.
That would
we'll
be
set up
good.
a show in the future that he can capture like 20, 30 of them. We'll go through review and just talk about it because I think that's important. We'll figure out how to rip some of the videos from Instagram and maybe some of the people that we follow and some fun ones and not so good ones. So that'll be good.
Yeah. But we're here today to talk about cooling temperatures when bass become more active and they start feeding aggressively, getting ready for those cold winter months.
This is hey, it's good time of year. I hate cold weather. I'm just going on record right now. I hate the fact that I was in. Well, when I have to put on a sweatshirt and I have to wear shoes and my feet are cold, like anything. I like summer. I like 100 degrees. 90 is perfect. And so for me, I went up to Seattle doing an event, came home, brought Seattle weather with us.
Yeah.
It's like overcast. It's cold. Kelly's like, are you going to make a fire? And I was like, no, it's like we're supposed to be warm still. So this is the time, fall transition. People say, if you need to put on a sweatshirt in the morning, well, welcome to cooler temps, cooler overnight. The fish know that. And we'll jump into all that because there's a lot of changes that happen out in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with colder weather. I mean, as long as I can wear my Adidas slides all day long, that's all that matters. I don't mind having a hoodie, but so let's first. Why don't we start out by let's define what the fall transition really is, and what really signifies that time of year.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is we talk about temperatures. And so there's all these great things because whether you're a Bible believer or you're just an evolutionist things happen for real. And we have the survival of the fittest that truly happens. We have fish that are feeding, they're feeding up, they're going to kind of hibernate. Temperatures are a big player. The length of day is a big player. So this whole equinox and what's going on. So every day right now, we're losing a minute of sunshine. And so it's darker for a minute longer every single day. So the fish key into that. They've been around for a long time. So they notice the angle of the sun. It's not as high in the sky in the northern hemisphere. So all these things start to happen, but really it comes down to temperature. Yep. So if the temperature starts to drop, the fish see that. What also happens is the grass starts to die off. And so this great green grass, you got patches that start to become brown. That means it's probably not producing as much oxygen. Yeah. What I like to think of is there's a key role. The fish are actually moving more. And so because I was just on a road trip doing 2,000 miles, think of fish moving more, like your car's driving more. You need to feed that car more at the truck stops, gas stations, and those fish need to eat more. They're also keyed into, they're not truly hibernating like a bear, but they do really slow their metabolism down. So they really feed up, knowing that you can catch your biggest bass in like February because the pre-spawn feed is going on and they got that pre-spawn weight. Fish are really feeding up because they're going to go down back to the deep water where it's actually, this is a weird part. They go to the deep water in the winter because it's warmer. And so that's something to really figure out in your brain. Okay, now these warm water fish, we're up here all summer. Some are in the shallows, some are down deep. Now they're transitioning, moving back and forth, and they know they got to feed. And the key is what are they feeding on? That's really what fall fishing comes down to. It's like, what are bluegill doing? What are crawdads doing? What is the forage that the fish eat? Because they, like that truck or that gas can, they got to get full. So I key into what the fish are eating. So if I'm going to go after a bass, I think like, what does a bluegill do? The bluegill, like a bass, they've gone down to deeper water. They've gone down to cooler water. And yeah, there's some along the shore, but they come up. And now that the insects are not as prevalent, the bluegill start looking at something on the bottom, the crustaceans and the snails and the worms. So now you're thinking of bluegill that are at the bottom. And you're like, what do I present that kind of looks like a bluegill that's feeding down at the bottom? Also now, if I got shad, different things, they're evading fish. And so they're up by the top and they're swimming away. So we'll talk about topwater. We'll talk about swim bait style fish. Then crawdads are a really sneaky player. And I know we didn't talk about jigs and different things on my list, but that's going to be a sneaky one. I think it's around 48 degrees, and I'm not a scientist, but in the spring when it hits 48, the crawdads, they start to reproduce. And so in the fall, when it gets back to 48, the crawdads, especially in the south and the southeast, they get into this activity level where they come out of the cracks, they're up, they're reproducing, they're mating, the crawdads are dancing, and depending on the vitamin A content, what color they are, whether they're red, green, or blue, crawdads become a huge feast for smart big bass because they don't have to use a lot of energy. So that kind of sets you up of like, okay, what's going on? These fish need to feed.
Yeah.
What are they feeding on? If they're pushing fish back into the shallows, they're almost like hunting in packs. And so Mike Iaconelli said it the other day. I was watching some of his videos, and he talks about bait. And when he says the word bait, he kept saying it over and over and over again. Anything that looks like a bait fish.
Yeah.
And you're talking that 2 to 4 inch maybe of what unless you got these huge gizzard shads, and then you can throw a huge glide bait. But what are your bass feeding on? Present it, get eaten. Sometimes it's kind of the easiest time to catch fish because they're hungry, they're eating stuff. And then other times, if you're just not in the right spot, you can go out and get blanked in the fall. That's the hard thing, is you got to figure out a lot of times at this time of year, what's a simple meal? What am I throwing? Where am I fishing? But I mean, you lined up some baits, and I think that's the next thing is really to jump into and to dissect.
Before I do that, I want to make sure I got my key takeaways from this. So the notes that I have are, I got to follow the weather, right? Because I want to make sure that the weather temperature is going to be really crucial and important. Bait fish imitation is crucial. Covering a lot of water because the bluegill are moving pretty quick. And I'm probably targeting creeks and shallows and looking for whatever vegetation is left.
Yeah, and the creeks is a good one. People don't realize this is sometimes the first time you've had rain. Like you go this dry summer. Some places get rain all summer, but where we live, we just got our first rain. And that first rain coming in is bringing in nutrients. It's bringing in food. It's bringing oxygen and water. So then we'll talk about currents and where these lazy bass sit on these inside current edges. And it gets really scientific, but we can just keep it so simple. These fish just want to eat. And that's the whole idea here is find them, search baits. Once you find them, throw what they're eating, and you'll have a good time fall fishing.
All right. I'd like to ask everyone in the chat just to give me, tell me what your go-to fall transition baits are. And let's see if we're going to cover some of your favorites. And if we don't, and if we have time, you've already got that down. Look at that. Poll's complete. Rafi's ahead of me.
Oh, Rafi's on it.
I can only do 4 at a time, though.
All right.
Four's good. Four's plenty.
Yeah. Let's talk about jerk baits for a little bit, because when I think of the fall, I think a lot about jerk baits as the water starts to get colder. So what kind of jerk bait are you throwing? Are you throwing suspending or a floating? And probably a lot depends on, how deep the water is, but let's talk about jerk baits for a little bit. So
it's all water depth. And when you think of water depth, it's actually the depth from the top of the water to the top of the grass, that fishable area that you have for your jerk bait. And I like to oftentimes get the jerk bait down as close to that grass, thinking of a fish kind of hanging in that grass and comes up and eats it. So suspending is fine. You can really manipulate a jerk bait a lot by how high you keep your rod tip up in the air as you're jerking it. If you have a floating one, every time you jerk it down, it starts to bubble back. I mean, we got the Craig and all these different things that'll go backwards now on the release. But again, bait fish imitator, a jerk bait is awesome. We talk about walking style because that irritates a bass, whether you're walking on the bottom or you're walking a jerk bait. It's very, very similar. I like to pick a jerk bait. Sometimes this time of year, this is when I'll downsize a jerk bait, go a little shorter. And so it depends on really what the fish are keying in on. Try a shorter, smaller jerk bait, and then try your standard, your 110, something back out the normal, like 4.5 inches. And just, this is the cool thing is you don't have to be specific on your cadence. If these fish are feeding, they're going to eat it. You can just start twitching that thing. You can twitch it even extra fast during this time of year. Don't be afraid to pause it once in a while, but really throw that thing out there and jerk it back. And if there's fish in the area, the cool part about fall is if you get 2, 3, 4 bass together, that's when you're going to catch one because they're competing for food. And they're a lot of times they're fishing as a wolf pack. Sometimes it's really hard to get that one independent fish to make a connection to your bait. But if you have one look at it, it's like Carl looks at it and Joe's like, forget you, Carl, I'm going in. So if you can get that jerk bait going, it's a really proven tactic to catch fish in the fall.
Yeah, I've always found jerk baits to be in my opinion, one of the easier baits to fish, as long as you're controlling the slack in your line. If you got too much slack, I mean, it becomes a challenge.
Yeah, it's just a matter of just learning that whole twitch, catching up with the reel, catching up with that slack and that twitch retrieve. You're trying, again, casting it, and really you can use a jerkbait pretty close to the boat, but cast it pretty far away. That way the fish don't see you, not spooking them, and you start twitching this thing and jerking it, pausing it, and just bringing it back to the boat. If it's going by a couple fish, it's going to get eaten. It's the shape of a fish. It looks like a fish. Jerkbaits now, if you just put that thing in the water, they look so close to fish. I mean, they literally, it's about as close to a fish in a bait that you can get other than a swim bait.
Yeah.
A jerkbait is a great presentation. And I'm like you, it can catch big fish. It can catch small fish. It's just a producer.
Yeah.
Sometimes the smaller fish will get to that bait and commit quicker, and you'll lose out on maybe catching the big fish because the small one gets to it just because it is so attractive, and they go and they grab it. So great bait to start with. And it is also, you can cover a lot of water.
Yeah.
You're just jerking that thing back and you find out where they are, and then you can go back and kind of pinpoint and try to catch a couple. But jerkbait is a great way to go.
I want to touch on something that I saw in the chat. There's a big question about golden tickets. Now, the golden tickets, we just brought them back. So I saw a comment from Autumn that she bought like June and July, August. None of those boxes have golden tickets in them. We just started it back up in September. So it's only the September boxes that will have them, and then October, and every month after that we'll have them again. So I apologize for any confusion, but September boxes will have all golden tickets. And at the end of the show, call out a number, and if we call your number and you take a picture of yourself and the ticket, send it to marketing@monsterbass.com. I'll send you something really great out of my garage. I've got a ton of great tackle, and I want to send some to one of you lucky viewers. So, all right, Brandon.
So let me throw one. Yeah, well, I'm going to throw a random thing I heard. I shared this a long time ago on a show. I had a buddy, we go fishing all the time, and he did not know how to fish at all. And he would throw a jerk bait, and he'd reel it back in like a crankbait. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And then he'd catch a fish. And I was like, never mind. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. So do your thing. And we would fish. I mean, I'm going to go on a limb and say 20 different times we just meet over at the main beach, and his kids would be there, and he would catch a fish every single time by casting and cranking a jerk bait. And you think of the bill on it, and it's exactly like a rounded bill crankbait, and it's wiggling, and it's a lot of guys trout fish with that. It's a game fish. It's a pan fish. They're catching fish. So even if you fish a jerkbait completely wrong, it is a wiggling, rattling bait fish imitator, and you're going to catch fish. I had a guy, I took him out again, another just casted it. And I was like, you got to learn how to use this jerk bait. And I started to move the boat. He was trolling with it and caught like a 4.5 pound bass. And I was like, that's a party foul. Like you can't, like you have to let that fish go. That doesn't count because you accidentally caught it on the wrong bait, teasing him. But just don't be afraid to try a jerk bait. They work very, very well, whether you're reeling them down, pausing it, jerking it, twitching it. Yeah. It just looks like a fish.
And it's forgiving.
Yeah, I mean, a fish looks at that thing. You got 3 treble hooks. It's going to get stuck somewhere, and that's the one neat. I mean, we'll talk about a spinnerbait in a little bit, and we talk about that fall bite, and sometimes a kind of little mushy bite. You throw a crankbait or a jerkbait out there in that same area, it's pretty hard for a fish to miss those treble hooks.
Yeah, yeah, and like BB Raider said, right? Usually that first bite triggers the whole wolf pack to converge on that bait. So you're bound to catch something.
I'm telling you, like just like that truck stop. You walk in and the guy in front of you in line's like, "Hey, give me 2 taquitos off the roller," and you're like, "That's disgusting." And then you're like, "Those look pretty good." When they're sliding them in the bag, you're like, "All right, I'll take 2 of those." Right, same deal. Totally. Somebody starts eating something, and that's suggestion right there. And the fish, it's cool because you see fish in the fall. Really, you'll reel a fish in the fall, and 3 or 4 or 5 fish are coming with it. Yeah. And you could throw a Cinco out there or a similar bait. You can end up catching fish as your buddy is reeling their fish in. And this is a cool thing if you can pull it off. Almost always the trailer is bigger. And that's the cool part is they'll have a fish, they're fighting it, reeling it in. There's like 2 or 3 bigger ones like, oh, can I take that bait away? And you drop a worm or something next to it, you can end up catching a bigger fish than your buddy fishing off the trailer end.
Totally.
So it's kind of cool.
Totally. Now you talked a little bit about bluegill, and you know they're all over the place, and they're moving pretty quick because I mean bass are hungry, and so I think when I think of bluegill, I think of covering a lot of water, and that's when I start to think about spinner baits.
Yeah.
What,
No, that's I mean spinner.
Yeah.
Golden. I mean, fall weather patterns, wind. You think of wind, spin for the wind. I mean, that's the thing is that's the call for that bait. It's whether you're up shallow. Thing to really remember about a spinner bait, and this is where the willow blades come in, is those willow blades look like a school of fish that are about the same size as the bait fish. So you're realistically throwing 3 fish. And it's kind of like I teased about it being a mini A rig. You got 3 targets for that bass to look at. And they're keying in, and this is that time of year where they still may be some cover. That way, having a trailer hook may not be the best thing because it's going to be snagged in some of that cover or the longer grass. But just depending on where you're fishing, it's something to consider to go into a tiny bit deeper idea about a spinner bait because they are so effective. If you're missing fish on a spinner bait and you don't have a trailer, when you think of a bass opening its mouth and it puffs its gills and it creates negative pressure like a vacuum, when you don't have a trailer, some kind of soft plastic on that spinner bait, it doesn't give a lot of volume to draw that bait into the fish's mouth. So the vacuum water slides right past those willow blades and slides right past that jig head. But if you add the volume of, say, like the body of a grub or the body of a boot tail swim bait, that body gives a visual target for the fish, but it also gives the pull on that negative draw, that vacuum of the fish's mouth. It draws that bait better into their mouth. So it's interesting because I fish a spinner bait a lot without a trailer hook and without a trailer. And if I notice I'm not quite getting them, or I see them follow into the boat, or you get these little tugs and it's not quite there, that's sometimes when I'll add that trailer. But a trailer, it gives you a little bit more of a target, a little bit easier way to catch those fish. But spinner bait, I don't know if you can catch. You're fishing with a school of fish, and that if your fish are forcing up into the shallow creek beds, cool thing about a spinner bait is you can fish it high, keep your rod tip up, reel it fast. You can fish in the middle of the water column, and you can fish all the way at the bottom. And so you can fish a spinner bait wherever you want, depending on your rate of retrieve. And so that bait is really, really good at covering water. Pause it, twitch it, make it go fast. And again, that umbrella action of that spinner bait loading up, unloading. They have really fancy ones with tapered arms on them now, and the spring load. And then if you want something really loud, throw a Colorado. If you want it to look like a bluegill and thump a little more, try a Colorado blade and see what that does. So
why does the Colorado blade mimic more of the bluegill?
Just the body shape. You think of that rounded, that visual. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, and then it just swims slower just because of the hydrodynamics of that willow blade. Just coils and spins fast. That Colorado blade it's like a shad scooping, slapping. So you can throw a spinner bait like up underneath a dock. What's cool about a spinner bait is as you think about a bluegill swimming down to the bottom, and now it needs to go and feed on like freshwater clams or snails or something. Just letting a spinner bait go in and fall. That is a jig that is falling and spinning, and it's spiraling down, and those blades are working beautifully, and you haven't even started to reel yet. And so let it go to the bottom if it's not too grassy, and tick it off the bottom and lift it up. And it's such an effective bait to catch so many fish. I love fishing a spinner bait. And if it's windy, sun's out, I'm fishing white, I'm going to go and catch fish. They just work. And that's why I talk about it. I just like the white. I don't know why. White has always been my gig. Like when I go out fish, you can have some chartreuse in it, whatever. I know you can go different colors. You can get dark. You can do whatever you want. I've just had so much success thinking of a shad or some kind of small minnow that a bass is eating, kind of gray, white fish color, white bone. Most of my moving baits, they just kind of look like fish. If I'm fishing with something that is the shape of a fish, or I'm trying to mimic a fish, I normally go about the same colors of a fish.
Why is it called a Colorado blade? Someone asked that question.
Why is it? I would think that it's probably associated with like an aspen leaf. So if you think of a willow leaf, I'm thinking of like the aspen trees in Colorado. That's off the top of my head.
All right.
Maybe somebody smarter than me to find out. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
just thinking
Indiana
'cause
blade reminds me of Columbia House. So
So yeah, I think it's I'm just going leaves, Colorado, aspen trees, quaking aspen, kind of looks like
Yeah.
that. But what do I
Yeah.
know? I just
yeah,
I don't
another bait that seems to be really popular, especially as as the bass move from staging, they start to move in shallow and move to the top, is topwater baits.
Yeah.
Let's talk
and it's
about topwater for a little bit.
yeah, talking that's dirty talk for me. My favorite way to catch fish. It's like I'm so mad because for some reason our local pond just sucks for topwater the last couple of years. And it's just this interesting topic. We all talk like, what's going on with topwater? It's like the fish have keyed in or they're scared, but again, they're hungry. They're
Yeah.
looking for food. If you that Ragnar that came out, I just made a video.
Yeah,
of the
target
Ragnar.
weed lines and just like toss that along the weed lines and
Just toss it along. It's pissing fish off. It's loud. It looks like a fish. I mean, they're looking up at this thing. It's moving. It's bubbling. It's gurgling. It's making noise. Whether it's a popper, the box this month, like you're talking about a frog. You got a spook style walking bait. You've got a popper in it. You got a whopper plopper. Like if you can't catch a topwater fish with what's in the box or bag this month,
and just
maybe
wait
give
another
up on
month,
topwater.
because if you're not ready for fall transition, everything that came this month you can use as we progress through the season.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like
Yeah.
if you're not with those baits, if it's not working, topwater's not working. Don't be mad like that. Like you've got the cream of the crop of like if you've got that selection. That is my favorite way to catch fish. Fall, they're feeding. You're calling up these big fish. They have this lazy, easy target splashing. They're just saying, eat me. Plus, if you've got different shad and different things that go up in the shallows, it's really cool if you key into a bait ball and a big fish, and you can see this on some of the electronics, the fish kind of charge up from the bottom, and then you'll see all these little fish evading. And they're swimming away from the big bass. And you'll see those boils of little fish actually physically jumping out of the water. And you're like, oh, that's a really cool spot. I can go throw my topwater popper right over there. And you pop around and the fish key into that and they come and smash it. And then it's back to that same visual fun of, I now have a fish that I got to see take my bait. It's a very active fish. It's up at the top of the water column. It's going to be a fun fight. And so it's a blast. And I don't know what it is like summertime, you can still catch fish, especially in the evening time or morning, early morning. But once it gets into fall, you can topwater all day long. If the fish are up shallow and they're feeding and they're pushing, and especially what's cool is falls. Now you have storms and now you have cloud cover and now you have fish that are feeding on topwater all day long because of the wind and the chop and big, huge rats work. You think about the biggest fish are looking for the biggest meals at times, but very often the easiest to eat. And that's one thing to really consider is they're not big and fat because they spend all their energy trying to catch something. They're big and fat because they selectively choose easy targets. Yeah. So that's why topwater, topwater, you splash and pop and then sit. Yeah. It's like, that's the easiest thing for a fish. Like I'll eat it. Yeah. So that's perfect. Yeah.
Totally. I want to take a minute. And ask everyone in the Monster Bass community to send their positive vibes, their energy, and their prayers to someone in the community whose dad is having a procedure at the hospital. He knows who he is. If he wants to say in the chat, he can. I don't want to take anything away from his privacy, but I know that he's he's at the hospital and today with his dad, and his dad's going through a procedure. And I just want to let you know that we're all thinking about you, sending all of our love and energy. So hope everything goes well for you.
I'm a big believer in that. No, that it's fun when you have the community and this positive gathering of people's energy. I tease about bass fishing. When you're angry or grumpy, the fish can sense it. I think there's something super cool about, that I do. And I think that's that thing is the energy of the universe all coming together from a monster bass community, whether you just give up a thought. I don't know how that works. If you're giving up prayers, whatever, just that good energy of all of us coming together. I think that's important. So
and I think we just solved why Rafi and I aren't catching as many fish as we could. Because we're starting to get grumpy, and we start talking to the fish. We start talking nasty to our poles, and we don't
nasty talk. Nasty. It depends. You're fishing for the wrong kind of. You're fishing for dirty fish, but that has its own place. But pouty pants. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you so grumpy? You're fishing. Are you kidding me? Like, let's go dig some post holes or do something. Like, let's go cut some grass, like Josh or something. Like, you want to get pissed off? Like, go cut grass at 105 degrees in Georgia. Like, we're fishing.
That's a hard pass. But that being said, the guy catches my PB on a daily basis, so I might put up with that.
I want to fish with that guy. So someday, that's the dream. Is I swear we have our parents somehow. Somebody, I don't know whose mom was with whose dad or what, but I'm related to that guy, and I got to fish with him. So
yeah, or definitely, or at least have a couple cold pops.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy.
For sure. What's going on? How many? Wow, there's some people in here, and we got six thumbs up. Is it because
thumbs up?
Yeah.
That's more than a whole hand. I mean, that's
right.
That's
I should be so lucky. I mean,
appreciate every one of them. All six of them.
And then as well, I'd like to say wish everyone a happy National Cheeseburger Day, and I hope that you get your cheeseburgers today, because I know that we did, and I still have one in the fridge because a little bit later I might need one. So, all right, moving on.
Was it? Well, I was gonna say, was it Impossible Burger? I mean, you're California Southern guy. Okay.
No, heavy-handed. It's made from they grind up short rib, and it's delicious.
Yes.
It's delicious.
Right, no, I like
and that's why I got a coffee here, because I had a double.
Made you tired. That's it.
Yeah.
Filled the body up. Yeah, that big old bun. I love that toasted bun. Sure.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I'm taking notes here because, as you guys know, I'm going out twice a month. I hired a guide to take me out because I run a fishing company, and I should be a much better angler than I am. And so now I'm committed to taking the box out twice a month, going with a guide, and learning my craft a little bit better. So I can't wait to share that with you guys, and hopefully I'm not grumpy at all on video.
That's right. You'd be a little pouty, little grumpy, little mad, whatever. It's fine. It just shows you're invested. You have high expectations. Just figure out how to deliver. We got you.
Yeah. And cast the nasties. I just saw the comment. So we're thinking about you and your family. So, all right, moving on. Oof. Finesse worms. When I think of finesse worms, like, I think about such a versatile bait, like, because you can rig that thing so many ways and get that thing down to the bottom pretty quickly. And man, when it gets pressured, I like to go to the bottom.
Bottom feeder. So I think this one thing is finesse worms, Cinco, soft plastics. I think when you think of the fall, fish have moved. They're moving into deeper areas, or out of the deeper areas, coming up sometimes into the shallows, ledges, creek beds, all these different things play a role. Once you find the fish, they're really looking to eat an easy meal. And that's where this whole finesse worm comes into play. Whether they're swimming and you can catch them on a bladed jig or an underspin or a swim bait, that same fish, as it swims by and it just sees this delicious worm sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And I always ask people, like, what is a worm? How often do you videotape or see, because there's so much underwater footage, how often do you see a bass slurping in a worm that looks like a Cinco? I've not seen a true animal that represents these finesse worms. But if you hook a worm like wacky, and it's like this, and I don't even know if my hand's on it, it's doing this weird thing, and it kind of looks like a nose down bait fish or whatever, just know that is one of the easiest things. It's lightweight. The fish can suck it in as they're moving. So in the fall, one thing I'll tell people is when you're fishing a worm, just look for your line to start moving. Throw that thing in the shallows, let it drift, sometimes weightless. And as these fish are swimming, they'll grab it. You'll see a little tick of your line, and your line will literally start going out to deeper water. It's just the easiest, simplest meal. You're really not having to trick the fish. They're just grab and go. It's kind of like this Uber Eats. It's like, it's right there, Dash food, Uber Dash, or whatever you want to call it. They're grabbing food and they keep moving. And it's just the easiest meal for a fish to eat. So don't think, again, if it's a bluegill down at the bottom, stick baits look like that. Finesse worms. It's just something they really, why would they turn their nose up at it, really? No. They're just going to take it and go. So that's
it's,
why
it's
whether
hypnotic. It just moves and they
it's-
just look at it and they're like, okay.
just gonna get it. So I have a guy. I mean, he fishes locally. His brother fishes a lot of tournaments, and I fish drop shot, different things. But he uses a split shot, and he uses a split shot weight. And I was like, what's going on? He does a split shot, and then about 2 feet, 1 foot to 2 feet, and then he puts a size 1 hook, and he just uses a robo worm, and he never changes from a center hooked robo worm 2 feet up from a split shot, and that split shot lays down. And that's what's tight to your line. And then that worm is basically floating on top of the grass wherever it lands. And I don't care what time of year, fall is perfect. The fish are swimming by. They see that stupid worm sitting there, and they pick it up. And the part I don't love is because that fish can actually take that, and you get more gut hooked fish because they inhale it, and the weight is what's tight to your line, and the worm is floating free. And so that can actually get that bait further into their throat. So you do end up with more gut hooked bass if you do that. But it is very successful just because the bait is free and the bait is weightless at that point. The fish just grab it and swim off. So it's very, very successful. But yeah, finesse worm. I mean, I don't know a time of year the finesse worm doesn't work. And that's a lot of guys are like, I never throw a finesse worm. I only throw 22-inch long swim baits. Well, congratulations.
Good
That's
for you.
fine.
Good for you.
Yeah, but a swim bait works, and right next to that swim bait, that worm. I'll tell you, the worm, when it really works good, is you get those followers that come to your boat with a spinner bait or topwater or that swim bait. When they swim back and they're like cruising back, they're like, I didn't eat that. Too bad. I knew that was a fisherman. You throw that worm back where they're going to, they come back and they're like, oh, I'll eat that. I'll eat that worm. And so the worm is an amazing follow-up to catch a trailer as it goes back to its normal haunt. So something to think about.
All right. Let's talk about a bait that is definitely important for getting deep, getting to those bass that are staging. It's the crankbait. Now, I don't know how many people here fish from a boat versus the shore. So I want to talk about it from 2 points of view, right? Let's talk about it from the boat, and then let's address, how do I fish this bait when I'm doing it from the shore?
Yeah. I mean, I think a really cool thing right off the bat is a crankbait. Normally when you purchase them, they tell you how deep they're supposed to swim. You got to remember, you cast it and almost all of them float, and they're at the top of the water column. And then you reel this thing down and it gets down to its peak depth, meaning how deep it's supposed to be. That depth is determined by line diameter and how fast you're retrieving it. At any point, the way a crankbait works is it's got that cool bill on the front, whether it's a square bill or whatever. It swims down, it's wobbling, looks like a fish, it's making noise, some are silent. But if it hits something, if you stop, it kind of goes backwards, and it's kind of like, oh, this thing, it unhooks itself and it unsticks itself. But if you're pausing at any point, that bill on the front, it actually kind of goes back and it goes up. If you give it a quick jerk and you reel it down fast, it gets down deeper. So you can change the depth. And I actually did some research before today, because when they test crankbaits, they say they test them on 10-pound, and it's monofilament. And so that is a certain diameter. The hardest part now is it's not universal. Some line companies use a really skinny monofilament fluoro, but there's a certain parameter. 10 pounds is pretty close to 10 pounds in mono. That line diameter gets the bait. Say it's a DT10. We'll just use the brand. So Rapala, say it's supposed to dive to 10. I don't know. And I would love it if somebody in the chat or somebody somewhere else could be like, hey, this is how they determine it. Is your rod tip at the water? Is your rod tip at waist, or is your rod tip up when they're getting the DT10 to 10 feet when you're retrieving it? And the reason I ask that is this is boat knowledge and this is shoreline knowledge. If I cast, and I normally am using my jerkbait, my rod tip is right at the water.
Yeah. And
when I'm cranking my crankbait, my rod tip is right at the water. And if I think of that, I'm like, oh, DT10, I'm fishing this back. In my mind, it's at 10 feet. If I hold my rod tip up at my waist, I just took that DT10 and made it a DT7. If I hold the rod tip up to my eyes and I'm reeling it back with my rod tip up, I've now made that DT10 a DT3 because my rod is 6 feet above the top of the water. Yeah. So that's one question I don't really know is like how deep a bait goes when they test it. Where is the rod tip in correlation to the water? But that's just an interesting concept because it plays into that answer of boat versus bank. If I'm on a bank and I have a gradual slope going away from me and I don't want my crankbait to get into the grass, I'll hold my rod tip down as low as I can to get that crankbait as deep as I can right away. And then I need that crankbait to kind of swim back up as it gets closer to me. And so instead I'm reeling it and the thing's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I cheat as I'm on the bank and I slowly raise my rod tip up. So as it gets closer to the shore, I'm retrieving it from a much higher rate. That way I can fish it kind of following the shoreline coming up because I'm pulling my rod tip up. So that's a little trick for a crankbait from the shore, but same thing with the boat. And this is why when you fish a crankbait from a boat, people will cast and crank. Great way to search for fish, but often you'll catch a fish right at the boat. And it's because that crankbait is swimming along a certain water column. And as soon as the tension line gets up and you're up here on the boat, that bait then immediately turns to come up to your reel. And as soon as it does, that bait turns more vertical and it swims up out of that water column like it's evading the fish, and the fish bite it right at the boat.
Right.
And you're like, wow, that's crazy. It bit it right at the boat. It's because that crankbait changed the water column it was in. So you can do that earlier in the cast and retrieve, as you can be reeling it with your rod tip by the water and then lift your rod tip up. That's one trick for open water crankbait fishing. The reality is a crankbait is designed to deflect off things, and it's designed to hit off of rocks and stumps. And that's why it has that bill in the front. So if you're getting that bait, flick it underneath a dock, and it's that, since that lady's going to jump in the water anyway, you might as well get a couple throw it right around the edge of her dock and try to wrap it around. Cause if it goes up against a dock and it clicks on that wood and it skips to the side, that's when those things get smashed. So if you're fishing those from the shore, consider fishing it parallel with the shoreline. If you can, kind of get as far out in the water as you can, put your rod out over the water and kind of hold your rod high so it doesn't basically dive down too deep. You can kind of do the same. You can mimic the same thing with a lipless, as a lipless is a really great way to fish what looks like a crankbait, but it doesn't dive down like a crankbait. So again, crankbait looks like a fish. It literally is the fish that the fish are trying to eat in the fall feed. And then a crankbait, this is the crazy thing, kind of looks a lot like a crawdad as a crawdad is swimming away. So if you watch crawdad swim, and a lot of crankbaits are painted exactly like a crawdad. So I always ask people, what are you trying to make this pretend to be? Are you thinking the fish is eating a fish, or do you think the fish is eating a crawdad? When you just key into that in your brain, you're like, oh, I'm going to fish this more like a crawdad. So my crankbait should swim and then maybe pause, and then swim again and maybe pause. And then you're like, oh, I'm mimicking something that's evading. I'm mimicking a crawdad. And if it works, good on you. Repeat that pattern and do it again and catch another one. So I think that, crankbait, again, gets way technical. Yeah, people get crazy. They're like, oh, I'm going to go rattles. I'm going to go silent. I think to keep things simple, out of the box, something with some rattles, making noise. Normally in the fall, you're not fishing crystal clear days. Probably have a little wind, have these storms coming in. If the water's a little noisy, something with some rattles and it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Chris, I got to tell you, I used to think of the monster bass community and hold them near and dear in my heart. And I just received some news that really is disturbing.
Oh,
51% of you think putting pineapple on pizza is okay?
Yeah, I agree. It's sophisticated. It's not for everybody, but come on.
No. And I'm going to leave the remainder of my comments for another show because I think we're going to have a whole segment about pizza toppings. The one comment I will make is Arthur Blanda said, pro tip, when taking pizza on your fishing trip, always order sardines on the side so you have free bait.
Smart guy. What about this? Right. What about a fried egg? I just want to know, fried egg on top of pizza.
All right, listen. If I'm having breakfast and it's got arugula and prosciutto on it, and it's got a runny egg, but it's for breakfast, fine.
But you don't eat breakfast for dinner? It's kind of
like chili Achilles, right? Like, and I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers here, but like, I don't know. Do I really want nachos for breakfast? And if I do, just give me nachos. Let's not try and class up nachos. You can't.
No, but tell me, it's like nachos for breakfast. That's preposterous. But you don't ever eat breakfast for dinner? Like you don't have like pancakes, eggs, and bacon for dinner just for fun?
I'll tell you what, the first time I had breakfast for dinner, I was dating this girl when I was in college. I went to her house and we had breakfast for dinner, and they pulled out like bagels and lox. And the moment they did, I was like, oh my God, this is like my favorite thing in the world. We had bagels and lox, and there were like pancakes, and there's like French toast made from challah. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I never thought about breakfast for dinner, but that's a whole nother show.
No, so that's why the pizza with breakfast pizza works. But anyway, that's fine.
All right, so
but that's important.
If I ruffled
Again,
some feathers with my concern about your choice in pizza toppings, I apologize. I'm gonna help convert you at another time, and another date. I'm gonna need a few more. I'm gonna need a few more thumbs up.
Pineapple.
And if you're tuning in,
people,
yeah,
pineapple people. We know the pineapple people.
Yeah,
we know what they're all about for real.
If you're tuning in just now, we're talking about fall transition baits. And if you want to watch the show from the beginning, you can find us on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and everywhere else. And, we've talked about jerk baits, spinner baits, finesse worms, underspins, crankbaits. And I think we should move to a bait that, how can we not put this in this box or in the next box? But let's talk about the chatterbait, because I think it's one of everybody's favorite baits, I think. I will be honest with you. I went out last week and I threw the jackhammer. I might have told you guys this. I threw the jackhammer and I threw the whopper plopper. And I really like that whopper plopper. And the chatterbait was it was a little frustrating. So I'd love to know from everyone in the audience what your thoughts are on a chatterbait, and I'd love to hear from you, Chris, why chatterbait this time of year is a great bait to throw during the transition.
We've given so much information, and this is where bass fishing, I always love it, because it's like fall, you got to use these 5, and then you listen to another person, they got their 5, and you're like, these fish are just eating whatever's around them because they're just trying to get fat. Kind of like, again, back to that analogy of us going into the AM, PM, or the truck stop. Like, there's just food there. You're going to find something that you like. A chatterbait, I throw that weird question back. What trailer are you putting on your bladed jig? And are you mimicking a fish in your mind or a crawdad? And that's an interesting question, again, because crawdads hang out in the grass. And if you're fishing over the grass, that chatterbait comes down. And if you watch a crawdad swim out, and it like darts so fast out of the grass, when you spook it, whether you're fishing in your boat, your kayak, whatever, or even on the shore, crawdads move through the water like a fish. Mm-hmm. Are you fishing a bladed jig to mimic crawdad or fish? And that should dictate somewhat of your trailer, and also where you position it, how you retrieve it. Are you casting way, way up shallow and swimming out the deeper water? Are you letting that bladed jig go all the way down to the bottom? And again, if crawdads are coming out and it's like that magic 48 degrees, and you let that bladed jig go all the way to the bottom. I've caught a lot of fish fishing a bladed jig and letting it sit on the bottom and just yo-yoing it up. If you put the right trailer on, it's just a jig that happens to have a blade in the front of it. So as you're like, oh, I fish a jig and I just barely drag it with contact along the bottom. It doesn't matter if the blade's on there. And I think people get so nervous of like, oh, a fish is going to see the blade as it sits there and decide not to eat it. That fish sees that crawdad, especially if the trailer is floating and has floating claws. You can fish a bladed jig as it falls down. That blade makes it do the weirdest stuff on the fall. You can catch fish on the fall. You can catch fish when it sits there. And then as soon as you lift it, it shimmies and wiggles, and that displaces that water. And if the fish is near it, that lateral line is like, oh my gosh, I got to go eat that thing. So bladed jig simply covers a ridiculous amount of water and can fish without getting hung up through so many more things than most baits. The way the hook is dispensed up at the top on the back, you normally have a trailer bouncing up over that blade, pushes the grass out of the way. It's one of the most versatile baits, and it produces. I would say if you went in like Major League Fishing and asked the majority of the anglers what they're fishing with to search with, you're going to have the most of them are saying they're going to use some sort of bladed jig, and it catches fish. I mean, simply put, John makes that donkey slayer. They won twice on the Delta with all the fish coming on the donkey slayer, and it's just an upsized bladed jig, and it works. And I'm a huge fan of them. the fish key into that trailer. You got a big trailer. It's easy for them to suck that whole bait in their mouth. The blade might even help on that vacuum side. And so again, you can't really go wrong. You can't really fish them wrong. You throw them out, you reel them in. It's wiggling, it's chattering. Fish them down by the bottom, fish them in the middle, fish them over grass, fish them over cover. Like how do you go wrong with something that looks like a fish? So,
and so so the retrieve on a chatterbait is pretty much just like you would on a jig, on a regular jig.
Crankbait ish, like casting and retrieving. But then I really key into like, what do I want this bait to be doing? Where do I want it to get down the bottom? If you're ticking the tops of the grass, and I'll tell you, if you get hung up in grass and you give it a little pop and you rip it out of the grass, and that bladed jig flies out of the grass really quick, that's when you get bit. As you start to see like, oh man, I'm retrieving this thing. I'm ticking it off of dock pilings. I'm trying to make this thing bounce, kind of like the same thing. I would love to do that with my crankbait, but the crankbait's going to get caught up, especially if you throw a crankbait in the grass. You can't fish a crankbait successfully very well through. I mean, some guys are like, oh, the grass is perfect. And I rip my crankbait and they do okay. But a bladed jig is the answer to dealing with grass and a lot of big cover. So you throw it out, you reel it in, you bounce it off some cover, you're catching fish. So it's a great one.
What do you think about glide baits?
I'm telling you, they're so fun. I like you're saying, think of a gizzard shad, and if a regular shad, think of a bluegill, because glide baits look like bluegill. I mean, they to the point where you put a glide bait next to a bluegill and you literally can't tell the difference. They're that good now. And that's the reality is like if you fish a glide bait that looks identical, hand painted or commercially painted by a computer, they're so precise. And that thing is like, how smart is a fish? How dumb is a fish? Glide baits look perfect sitting still. Now move that thing and move it in a manner where it successfully is swimming back to the boat, and it calls these fish to come up, and almost that schooling mechanism that like, oh, I'm going to go and swim with this thing, and I'm going to school, and I'm going to follow it. And then you give a little twitch with your reel or your rod tip, and that glide bait turns around and goes nose to nose with that bass. They have to eat it. So it's just one of those deals of like, whether they're eating it because they're hungry and it's a big, easy meal, or they're eating it because they're pissed off, or they want to get something out of the area because they're like, hey, I'm the one trying to eat in this truck stop here, and this other fish is going to eat my food. I'm going to bite it in because I can't punch it. I mean, think of a fish trying to punch something with this little side fin. That's not going to work too good. So they're fighting with their mouths. So whether they're eating or fighting or just investigating, they do that all with their open mouth. And so you've got a bunch of hooks on them. Glide baits are super fun. And then the wake bait style glide baits now bring these baits to the surface. Yeah. And so you've got this big wake and it's making all this noise, and it's this huge glide bait. Again, big fish are like, I want a big meal. Right. I don't want to spend a ton of calories. You eat a 1 pound bluegill. If you're a big fat bass, it takes 10 pounds of forage for a bass to gain a pound. So if I'm a big bass and I have a sickly looking swimming bluegill, and I know if I just eat 10 of these things, I'm going to put on a pound of weight for the winter. I'm going to eat 10 big dying bluegill. And if you can make your glide bait look like a big dying fish, you just won. So that's the key is glide baits are awesome. I've seen people fish glide baits where they let them sink, they let them fall, almost dead sticking them, barely twitching them underwater. I tell people the really cool thing to think of is take a glide bait if you're not good at it or just unfamiliar with it. Fish it like a jerk bait. Just pretend in your mind your first few times out, I take a jerk bait and I use it with a certain cadence, and it does certain things underwater, and it kind of is erratic and it moves. I'm twitching it. That's what you can do with your reel cranks, like the little half pause reel cranks, or you can twitch it with your rod tip the exact same way. And just think of a glide bait to start is maybe a little bit bigger jerk bait, and you'll be like, wow, this is fun.
Do you find that the glide bait works better in clear water and the wake bait version works better when the water's cloudy and murky?
No, it's more like if Topwater is on, and I think Topwater's working better than that. Wake bait is just so much fun. I mean, you think of a wake bait, a lot of them look like rats, a lot of them look like glide baits, bluegill, whatever. A wake bait just puts that big, huge target and fish up at the top. And then you're looking for a big fish
Sure.
considerably, like a bass will eat a fish about a third of its weight. That's how big. So if you're throwing a wake bait that kind of looks like a 1 pound fish, you're targeting fish that are 3 pounds or bigger. Yeah, sometimes you'll get these little fish. You'll catch a 1 pound fish all the time on a 1 pound bluegill style wake bait or a swim bait, but they're probably not trying to eat it. They're probably trying to fight it or get it out of their space.
Got it.
But yeah, it's the glide bait is a super fun way that you're keying in. Again, I don't think you can mimic the bait fish better than a glide bait. And that falls into like, what is a swim bait? Just go into a swim bait, just a boot tail, paddle tail, soft bodied swim bait. That is what glide baits and these big swim baits are coming from. You like the Huddle, all these different baits kind of went in these soft plastics, and now they've evolved into these hand painted pieces of art. And you can pare down and be like, I'm going to use a glide bait all the time just to see where fish are. I throw them all the time because you got bass, they can't stand that thing swimming, and they have no interest in eating it, but they'll come all the way to the boat. They show themselves. They're like, oh, look, you got 2 fish over there. And then you can either kind of throw something different or peel off and say, okay, those fish were pulling up from this style of cover or this depth. And then you have a pattern to go to the next spot where the fish should be.
All right. Well, I mean, I've got enough notes here, so when the next time I hit the water, I'm pretty fired up. I did have one question, and someone else in the chat had it. What was the name of the? Was it the Donkey Slayer? The
Donkey Slayer. So Donkey Slayer.
What's the website?
I think it's donkeyslayer.com actually. So I think he's got. So it's pretty should be easy. Yeah, it's a big, oversized. I mean, he goes 1 ounce and big old blade. So it's
love it. All right, you guys. I've learned a lot today. I've also learned that you guys have no taste when it comes to pizza. And we're going to work on that. But as you know, I love to celebrate the catches that you guys have. And so if you've got a catch that you're really proud of, head over to monsterbass.com/PB. It doesn't have to be your PB. It just has to be a catch you're proud of. Upload it, and we'll pull from it every week. And if we pull one of your picks, again, we're going to send you a little something from the garage. You got a lot of good stuff from there because, you know, the first 40 shows I spent getting rid of all the crap in the garage. Now all that's left is just good stuff. And now I'm going to send it to you. It's not to say that there's people that got stuff from my garage that it was really crap, but I'm just looking at the world a little bit differently. So let's not waste any time. Let's head over to the trophy room and let's look at some catches. And our first one today is Jeff Hicks, 7 pounds, 5 ounces out of Alabama on a jig, black purple craw. It's a pretty nice catch.
It's a good one. Nice belly on that fish.
Yeah. Up next is Tracy Scott, 5 pounds, 1 ounces. That fish does not look happy. It is.
No, he's using a fish. He's got the scale. He got the little clippers on it. He doesn't want to touch that fish. So
totally. But he does win the award for best dressed.
I was going to say styling. He's got the white shoes on. He's got his nice fit. He's got the bass on the shirt. So I appreciate it.
Caught on the slobber knocker. Let's go up north to New Hampshire with Chris Fernall. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. That's big for North New Hampshire. So that's a big fish. That's big.
Look at he's happy. Look at that thing. That's a big old fish, big belly. He's hugging that thing. So he's excited. So I mean, look where he caught that thing. Like you look at that cover behind him. Yeah. You got some little lily pads. Maybe you got that water. Probably it looks like there's probably a lake up behind him. So that's the tailwater. Yeah. So those fish probably come up there. They're stuck. They're trying to probably go up river. That was probably a reservoir. And so they're just coming into that area. That fresh water coming out of the bottom of that lake is just full of nutrients and big fish live there. So
love it. And then up next, speaking of spinnerbait, Steven Stockinger. Whoa, 6 pounds. He knows how to hold them because that looks way bigger than 6 pounds to me, but that's a good size fish.
Yeah, and I think it's fun because looking at fish, depending in North Carolina, that fish is not tons of coloring. So it maybe came from lower, deeper in the water because it's not getting a lot of sunlight on it. Yeah. And again, spinnerbait, you can catch fish anywhere. So it's fun to see fish and kind of give it dissect where they're living, where they're at. It's cool to see the photos like that.
All right. And last but not least, we got Victor. Victor caught a 1 pound, 5 ounce on a crankbait. Congratulations, Victor. I love that.
It looks like a crappie.
It looks like a crappie.
It does.
Yeah. Oh, still 1 pound.
Yeah, dude, like 1 pound, 1.5 on crappie. Oh, that's awesome.
That makes a good sandwich right there. Yeah. Good sandwich. Good stuff. So again, if you've got a catch you're proud of, upload them to monsterbass.com/pb, and congratulations to everyone whose picture we shared today. We're gonna send you a little something. So
can we wait? Can we? Can I just? I got.
Yeah.
Are we gonna see your fish? Are you gonna share your fish each week of like what your PB that you caught? Whenever you go fishing, I want to see it.
I'm going to share the entire experience, long form and all. I may not even edit it,
So
it may have. It may come with a rating on it, like an NC.
No, I'm telling you right now. Our clip of the week will be you getting pissed off. I can't wait. If it's shared long format, we know we can rip some of that from YouTube, and then we're gonna have PBs. Clip of the week of Rick pissed off throwing stuff in the water. I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited.
All right. You guys have been waiting all episode long for the golden ticket, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in and being patient, sticking with us, and having bad taste in pizza toppings. So if you've got your golden ticket, again, individually numbered, and all you got to do is, if I call out your number, take a picture, send it to marketing@monsterbass.com. Make sure you give me your phone number, because if you don't, just like my good friend here, Cody Roberts, 12 years old, out of Alabama. He didn't give me his phone number or address, so I have no way to get a hold of him. So today's golden ticket number is 2999. It's one less than 3,000. So if you've got that number, make sure you reach out to us. So, and as always, we're here every week, and you can subscribe at Amazon, Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you like to watch your podcast or listen to your podcast. We've got both versions. We've got, I really enjoyed the clip of the week. I think that's a keeper. Might like to have a couple of those. They were pretty good.
Can that be part of the opening? Like, we need to swap out that opening and maybe just add her right as she jumps in with a nose plug. Like, I love the fact that
I think it's time
no
to
more
go,
fish.
No more tortilla slaps. We already saw Rafi, go to town. So listen. Appreciate you taking time out of your day, Chris and Rafi and Fixie. Make this great show, and I appreciate all of you in the community that are part of this. It's it takes a village, and here we all are. So for a good time, dial 2999. You're the golden ticket winner.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Like, this is like it's a highlight of my week to come in here and just talk about fishing. We're talking about baits. Sometimes I can go a little too detailed where people are like, man, that guy is giving me too much information. Yeah. The cool part about the fall, just throw stuff, just fish, whatever your favorite bait is. If we talked about it, and I promise you can have a complete different idea. You can go out when the fish are moving. You can fish spoons successfully in the fall. You can fish the craziest baits. Yeah. Just go fish. These fish are moving all over. They're trying to feed up for wintertime. And your region, we didn't really touch on that. Your region, what fall looks like for you in Florida is so different than what it looks like in the state of Washington. Yeah. And so when we're now getting a little cool, people are like, I think it might snow next week if you're somewhere else. So just get out there, go fish, have a good time. And that's what it's all about, getting outside.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chris, thanks a lot for being on the show. Really appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Pleasure. We'll talk soon. See you guys.
All right. Bye. That was a good show. I took a lot of notes. Hopefully it's going to help, because I don't want to be the grumpy fisherman. Although I think you guys probably want to see me throw a temper tantrum out on the boat. It'd probably be a pretty good sight to see. I'm going to ask you guys for some help. If you guys have seen some really funny video clips, send them to me. Send them to me at rick@monsterbash.com until we figure out where we want to send them. But if you've got a funny clip, send it to me. I'll make sure Rafi gets it. I don't want to give out his email address without asking him first. So send it to me, and I'll make sure we get it. And it'll give me something good to watch when, I'm in the bathroom or something. I'll watch them all. And it'll be fun. So thank you guys so much. And we'll be back next week with another great show. And I did. And Rafi just asked if I gave out my old email address. I have a new one that I can't tell you guys because it's a secret. But we'll be back with another great episode next week. If you wouldn't mind doing me a favor on the way out, hit the thumbs up button. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks a lot, man. Bye.
Caught fish.
We're just fishing. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just fishing. We haven't hit anything. And if we do, stuff happens. Okay.
No more fish.
Yep, no more fish.
Yeah. Someone scared him away.